All right, thank you everybody for joining us today. We've got a great group of utility folks here with me today. And I'm, of course, Brandon from Buzz Solutions. We're an AI software platform. And everybody here with me today is in kind of a different stage of modernizing their inspection program. Some using AI, some not. So hopefully we can give you a really great perspective on kind of all the different ways that we can modernize our inspection programs, and of course, focus a little bit on AI as well. So my first question for you, gentlemen, you all being in different stages of your inspection program, your modernization, every utility begins this journey from a different place. So what was the initial business challenge that led your organization to rethink how inspection data would be collected and managed and acted upon? May I start with you, Slade?
Well, I think a lot of times that you got the engineering department that doesn't really know what you can do. So to put that in perspective, our group is in the aviation department. So we started in the manned aviation department. So we are pilots that have distribution and transmission knowledge. So it's up to the pilot to kind of say, we can do these things, and I bet the field would follow along. So the field doesn't really know what can be done. We have to show them. And I think that's been the obstacle. It's been trying to show them what we can do, that this is a worthwhile platform.
Absolutely. And Grant, you've been kind of moving into AI, but where did you start? What was the driver?
So our program is just barely getting started here. We just started dipping our toe into the water, per se. What we started looking at is our aging workforce throughout the company is starting to retire. We just didn't have the skill sets there any longer to maintain the inspection quality that we were getting in the past. So we wanted to try to find a way to keep that level of inspections as high as they were, but not have such a long training curve where we were going to wait 5, 6, or even 10 years to get everybody up to speed where it was at. So we're starting to investigate into the AI side of it to see how it can help us get there faster with this younger workforce, and possibly maybe retain some of that workforce as well moving forwards, because it's not such a grueling or intense process. We're trying to learn everything that's going on. And a lot of the younger guys we're hiring are also more technologically advanced or interested in it. So that's why we started going down that route.
Yeah, it's a really interesting challenge. And of course, the workforce issue is huge. So you're kind of discussing using a model as a way to retain that knowledge before it goes out the door.
Pretty much. We've just with the trials that we've done so far, I've have 20 some years experience in the industry. So I've been working with our model just to try to see how it will affect and what it catches and what we don't. And there's things that I'm catching that it doesn't catch, but there's a lot of stuff that it catches that I didn't even notice before while we were taking the pictures. So even somebody that's been a lineman for 15 years and then in the office working with engineers for the last 5, I'm still catching stuff that I'm not catching out in these pictures. So
interesting. What's going on at Duke, Garrett?
Sure, yeah. So good afternoon. I'll just echo what Slade said. I think when our program was first starting, education was key, and it still is key. So just continuing to try to keep people informed of kind of what is coming and what's new in AI certainly is a huge topic today. I'm not the guy at Duke Energy that deals with AI on a day-to-day basis. We have teams that are just dedicated to that, but just looking at, how is AI going to change what we're doing in the future? And I can just tell you kind of where we've seen just kind of elementary implementation of AI within the drone sector at Duke has really been around. You have just this immense amount of bulk data being collected on a regular basis, and then it's how do you take that data and actually turn it into a product that an engineer can use. Somebody that maybe doesn't understand the data, doesn't understand maybe the workflow of how that data is generated, and maybe doesn't understand kind of the art of what's possible in terms of how to ingest that data or make that data useful for themselves or even for partners within the business. So that's kind of really the next step, I think, for Duke.
And I shared one thing with you guys, Brandon, before, one of our, I guess, caveats, one of our parts to our story that we highlight is we did a feeder in Alabama that Alabama keeps the worst performing feeder list. That feeder was number 2 in the worst performing feeder in the state. To put that in perspective, there's 2,200 and some odd feeders in Alabama. We did an inspection for them, and one of the things that was funny was we didn't hear from them for 2 years. So we thought, wow, we've really messed this up. We have missed the opportunity. They called us 2 years later and said, we had budget constraints, and we've now completed all of the repairs that you've highlighted. We wanted to share the safety numbers with you. That feeder is now 567th on the worst performing feeders. Long way to go. There's still 2,200 feeders in the state. However, it was number 2. So that becomes one of the shining examples of what we can do. And we share that with other distribution groups.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great story. It's a real inspiration getting it up there. So lots of different reasons, right? Data management, storing knowledge, maybe workflow optimization. So where are you today on your modernization journey, and what capabilities, whether it's AI, whether it's workflow automation, or even just the drone technology itself as well, which one of those capabilities had the biggest impact on your team so far?
I think once you collect the data, it's like Garrett was saying, how do you turn that into actionable items? And I think my background is in GIS, so that became that landed in my lap. So I understand how to talk to engineering supervisors. I know what they need. I know that they're going to give this repair work to contract crews, not company crews. So they may or may not have access to our maps and our GIS data. So I came up with a very simplified report that shows the photo from the drone, the latitude and longitude. We collect the data. The data is put in field maps. The field writes notes in that data. That is pulled in along with a GIS map of the area. So there is no question about what the problem is and how to correct it, how to get there, and what to do when you get there. So I think that's one of the keys, is making it actionable, making the data actionable to the field. And how do you do that? You have to meet them where they are. They don't know what they don't know. So you have to kind of help them along.
Yeah, absolutely. And Slade and I just completed a pretty significant study along with EPRI, and one of the interesting findings was that while the AI was great and was certainly helpful, that a lot of the low-hanging fruit to gain efficiencies and inspections was actually in the automation of the process, from data capture, managing the imagery, matching that to GIS data, being able to report on that and take action, like you said. So I always say, AI is cool, but at the end of the day, if you can't take action on it, then it's just 10,000 pictures with a bunch of colorful boxes, drawn on top of it.
And I think that at some point, Southern Company will be at that point of using AI. That's going to be the next logical step. But until we automate what we're doing now and make that efficient, then we can't make the AI portion efficient either.
Yeah.
So I think it's just baby steps. You got to walk before you can run.
Absolutely, you got to be ready for it.
So we're a little behind the times on everything. To put in perspective, we just digitized our maps 5 years ago. So we just got our GIS up and running. We can now search our poles and everything else like everybody else in the country can do that. So, but it also opened up a lot of opportunities for us, because now we're not trying to rebuild our systems to match what the new technology is or try to integrate drones or AI into it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. It's good in one way because we can integrate, but it's bad because we're trying to do a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. So we're struggling with getting people on board with it, actually trusting the data that's coming out and what it's saying. Showing the pictures helps. It does help getting it out there, but now we're seeing so much of this stuff that now we have to try to come up with the funding to actually repair it and keep up with it. So that's a big concern for us internally, is, okay, where do we stop? Where do we draw that line? Because once we identify the issues, now we have to have the funds to repair it. And if something happens between that time, then it becomes a big legal issue. Is the concern is that somebody gets hurt, then they're going to come back and say, we knew about it whenever we just found out about it. And we're trying to build that business case and build the funding up to try to fix that stuff.
So AI and drones sped you up, and now maybe it's getting a little bit ahead of what you can handle. And I've heard that before from a lot of smaller utilities. I mean, that is certainly a challenge. Yeah. What about at Duke? What's, out of all the technology, what's had the biggest impact, and kind of how does AI fit into that?
Yes, I would say over the last 5 years or so, Duke was pretty heavily invested in doing GIS corrections. So we had a fairly large scale project effort where we were, collecting bulk data sets of, distribution pole information and going in and doing GIS correction updates for ADMS. And, I think the real first kind of scaled AI implementation that we had was just we were getting all this data back, and we were paying retired or light duty linemen to manually sift through thousands of images of distribution poles and identify, okay, here's a pole, the attribute says X when it's really Y, and we need to make that change in the GIS system. And so one of the first things that they did was kind of start to use AI and ML a little bit to help those individuals identify, okay, here's what I'm looking at, colored boxes and basic tagging and classification. And so that's where we've been, I'd say, in the last 5 years or so, and we're actually getting ready to restart that at a limited scale again this year after sunsetting it when we completed that effort. But, I'm going to echo something that I heard the former panel kind of touch on right there at the end, which is, we've got some awesome folks on our team at Duke, and just what we're being able to do right now with kind of the onset of like Claude and Grok and some of these just kind of generally available models that we're able to use through our AI teams at Duke to be able to do things like take a subject matter expert and say, if you could build a tool, what would the tool look like? And give that to an AI and help us kind of ideate, where would we like to be? And that is really helping us kind of inform then our conversations with vendors. So, before we come to a Buzz or before we come to, any of the plethora of vendors that are sitting in here listening to us today, like, what is it that Duke really wants to see? And we can kind of take that subject matter expertise and kind of create a vision for kind of where we want to be at. And then also just simple things. So, another one of our big initiatives is partnering with our enterprise security folks to deploy docs. And, something as simple as bringing a geo-reference pin into, some kind of user interface for responding to incidents. That is something we would have in the past had to partner with a team and spend, an entire evolution of kind of project management and development to figure out how are we going to, take data out of X system and then move it over here and then give us a pin so that we can do the work. And we're able to do that ourselves now without having a big development team, within aviation. And so I think just as AI continues to expand and grow, it's going to make us even more capable to help, if it's not solve the problem, at least figure out a way to get us to where we want to be and help communicate that better to our partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. So using AI to prepare for AI,
Yep.
That's really smart. What's been the biggest lesson or surprise during this journey, whether that was related to the technology or data quality, process changes, or organizational adoption? What surprised you?
How well it was received by the field. So I think one of the things that Grant touched on was the aging crews, linemen, that sort of thing. They don't like to change a lot. So I can remember unboxing a Wingtra and having a foreman say, well, that's just a nice little toy you have there. It's like, well, it does a lot. And so once they see the value, then it changes their whole perspective. They want to, well, can it do this? Well, can it do that? And now we're inundated with requests. So I think you have to be careful whenever you put a drone program in place, because you're going to get inundated with lots of questions about can you, and then it's going to be up to you to implement the fact of will you or should you. So I think you have to be on top of those kind of questions, and where do you direct your emphasis? Is it more on construction? Is it more on O&M spending? Is it, where do you put the emphasis? Because you're not going to have the team to cover everything. You're never going to have enough people. You're never going to have enough budget. You're never going to have enough of anything. So you have to be able to be good stewards of what you're given and do the most you can with what you have.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And as someone that goes into the field and trains folks on how to use the AI, I really like to emphasize how important it is to have the human in the loop. Nobody wants to get sent out on a job by an AI and go out there and find out, hey, this wasn't really broken, right? And in every implementation, at least of our product, we feel like AI creates work. It's not trying to replace a human. It's trying to help. And to Grant's point, sometimes it finds things that human didn't find. But the perfect pair is really the person and the AI together. At least that's what we believe. But Grant, your organization seems like you've been adopting AI pretty well. Have you had any pushback from the field?
Yeah, it's kind of split though. So like we are a union shop, so we have union linemen and union field workers, and we have the non-union management side of it as well. The union side is typically they are very anti-technology. They wanted to stick with their pen and paper, and they're very hesitant to the change. But for some reason with this, we found it almost the opposite. The people in the office are hesitant to change because like I touched earlier, they were scared of the repercussions. What's going to happen with the stuff we find? How much of how much stuff are we going to find that we need to repair? And they're not wrong. Like we are finding more, but that's the point. We need to find more so we can make more repairs, so we can reduce our outages, reduce the time that our linemen are actually being called out and working overtime. But on the flip side, the guys in the field, they really like it because they're getting better information right up front. As soon as they have a job, whenever they're ready to go, they have all the pictures they need. They have exactly the information that they need to fix the job, where in the past when people were doing it, myself as a lineman, I know what I'm looking for when I'm trying to build the thing. The engineers that are designing it, maybe they don't understand what it takes to build it. Like we need to build a road into this area, or we need to just something as simple as we need a different size bolt or different size arms because we just have to build it differently. With the AI, they have the pictures, and because you're taking the pictures usually with we do it with a drone typically, but we do have some ground inspections that we're utilizing it too. But these pictures and the video that comes along with it, they can see how to access this area. So there's a benefit to it outside of just the AI part of it. It's just the whole technology in general. Like if we weren't using AI, we wouldn't be using drones. We wouldn't be giving the information out there. So they're getting the whole package up front before they ever leave the garage. So it's kind of split. I understand it, both sides of it, but we'll get there. It's a challenge, but it's a good one.
Awesome. Garrett, what surprised you at Duke as you started going down this modernization journey?
Yeah, I mean, and I know it's already been said, but just the education piece continues to be a huge challenge for us, just to find partners in the business that understand kind of, hey, we have a common goal and a common objective, and trying to navigate kind of the nuances of working, for at least Duke within a very large corporate structure. So, we're all on one team working together, but, we're almost in different verticals. So you have a team that's hyper-focused on counter drone. You have a team that's hyper focused on spraying. You have a team that's hyper focused on, mapping and inspections, and trying to kind of look at where we're at, especially with AI, like holistically, like where do we need to go strategically over the next 5 to 10 years or whatever, to try to really maximize kind of the benefits that we can get out of it all. And so just, Duke started its program probably back in like the 2017 timeframe. And you would have thought that we would have gotten to a season where it's like everybody understands what drones are, what they can do, and how we use them. And it's been, that's the farthest thing that I could say is from the truth, because we're still educating, teaching, even today, just kind of how drones are used and what they are able to do, kind of to what Slade was talking about. There's just a lot of misinformation still on kind of what's possible and where we're currently at. And so I think just, with the AI technologies, it's just we're trying to be very good stewards of the technology to understand, hey, what's available, and, participating in conferences like this where we're able to sit down with other professionals and, try to understand, what is a Buzz offering, what is, other companies that are participating offering, and just trying to be, good, informed, members of the industry and figure out kind of where we need to look next.
Yeah, so it kind of surprised you that you've had to go and tell the story over and over and over to get it to spread, and how long that's been taking. Yeah,
we still see people in our group, in our company, that still say, I didn't know you existed. We've been the same as Garrett. I think we started our program in 2016. So we've been around, well, that makes 10 years now. So how do you not know a group exists within your own company? It happens.
We actually have the opposite. We have to slow the information down because the rumor mill starts of what we can and can't do. And then we have to slow it down and say, no, we really can't do that yet. We have to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I think that's why things like this are just really important, right? Because we can share best practices and challenges and things that have worked for us. And I think that really helps to kind of move it through and get adoption at an organization. So yeah, that's really interesting. So last question for you guys, and then we'll hopefully have some time for the audience to ask us some stuff. So let's go to the future. There's no wrong answers here, right? We can make up whatever we want. So in the next 3 to 5 years, if you had your way, what would be the biggest opportunity for AI and digital technologies to improve inspection reliability and asset management programs?
I think that the dock technology and things of that nature are moving us in the direction where everything's going to be automated. So the inspection is now not going to be a former lineman who's piloting and can see something that's broken and then take a picture of it, and then all that has to be accumulated and has to be disseminated through and then produce some kind of product. I think once AI starts understanding what a broke conductor looks like, a broke insulator looks like, I think you're going to see the floodgates open up, that the dock technology is going to start taking over, and it's going to all be automated. I don't know that that's smart. I don't know that it's not smart. I think that's just where the technology is going to take us.
Yeah, thanks.
So I agree with the dock idea. Like we're exploring that now. We have one dock that we're looking at, and possibly a different manufacturer as well. They have their use cases, but they also have limitations. So we are a very small company. We're 60 miles across, basically. I mean, we have a couple hundred miles of transmission line. I think we're like 400 miles of transmission line. So we are a very small company. We don't need a ton of docks. We don't need a ton of space, but there's still areas in our company that we can't put a dock station into, because for a few different reasons. Either we don't have cellular connection, we don't have any assets in that area, such as a substation. Okay. Or it just doesn't make it feasible to put it there because there's so little customers or so little assets in that area. So we're never going to be able to cover all of our territory with a docking station. Ideally, where we would be at is we want to utilize docking stations for troubleshooting, helping our troubleshooters at nighttime whenever there's not a lot of resources on, using stuff with spotlights or whatever, just to illuminate areas that might be dangerous for them to walk through in their right-of-ways. Also cover areas. We are in Pittsburgh, so we get a lot of snow in the wintertime. And we have areas of the hillsides where we build houses we probably shouldn't have, and it's caused vehicle accidents where trucks have slid down the hill and hit other vehicles or into poles or stuff, and then we have to go there anyway because we got to replace the pole. So utilizing the dock or even just handheld drones to pick up those areas, that's where I see the future going. Is we have 5 to 10 10 pilots flying every single day to cover our territory. And then we supplement with docks on the backside to try to pick up those areas for a little more routine inspections, or areas that maybe take a little longer for us to drive to or something like that. And then on top of that is with the inspections, we use some sort of AI to identify it a little faster, so that like we said a little bit ago, just we can utilize somebody that's not been in the field for 20 years, somebody that's just coming in and maybe they're a better pilot than they are a lineman, and then they can identify the stuff and information that we need to get ahead of time. So,
Yeah, awesome. I hope you get there. Where's Duke going to be in 5 years?
Yeah, this will kind of sound weird. I think hopefully we put kind of our department out of business in 5 years, to an extent. And the reason I say that is, we're mainly fielding pilots every day to go out and fly, one mission per pilot. My hope in 5 years would be we've kind of put us out of business and we've created a new version of us, which is we're really more of a system manager organization, where we have, whether it's docks or some other form of that out there that is flying pre-planned automated missions, multiple at a time to a single coordinator, pilot, whatever you want to call them. The drone department for Duke has always been a means to an end. The only reason we have drone pilots is because we have data acquisition needs, and drones just happens to be a method to get there. And so, I think as time goes on, it's just going to be, what does AI do for us in terms of speeding this process along? But, it'd be really cool to get to a point in the near future where we have an outage alert, a drone automatically launches, it knows exactly what pictures to take, it analyzes the pictures, and that information goes directly to the consumer with no, human processing or anything like that. And I don't think that that's out of the question. It's going to be more, I think, the challenge on us as a company to figure out, how do we convince ourselves to adopt, and how do we implement properly and not get sidetracked. Because there's a lot of moving pieces there. That's not a one trick pony. That's going to be multiple different chains of authority and different folks that have to buy into that type of concept. So we'll see where we're at.
Okay, so you're going all in.
Yeah, I think we would all love to be there. It's just a question of how quick will it come, I think.
Yeah, that's exciting. I know at Buzz Solutions, at least my vision is to do a lot more than just draw pretty boxes around our assets and identify what they are and what their condition is. But I kind of see AI really kind of taking a big role, especially at a place like Duke, where it can do a lot more as we hook up into more systems, as we hook up into outage management systems and things like that. One of the things that I try to help people understand is it's a lot more than just the inspection process or just that structure. But when you start to collect a lot of data with these drones and you start to have a really good picture of your system, you can start to ask really big questions that just weren't possible before. Like, where are all of my pole mount transformers across my entire distribution network in my high wildfire areas? How would you have even answered that before, right? And so I think it's going to give us a really powerful image of what our systems look like, exactly what's going on with them, and then allow us to start to ask the tough questions.
I think to expand on what Garrett was saying, for us is you have to trust the AI. And I don't know that our generation is, the new employees coming up will probably be there. But our generation, where we are in our career, I don't think we're going to adopt that at anytime soon.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's definitely hard. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left. Is it all right if we open it up to the audience and ask a few questions?
Well, do we have any questions for our panel that packed a good amount of information? We're very candid. We appreciate that, where your programs are and where they're headed. We get the microphone over here, and I think you do a couple for our next session.
Hi, Sam Eshelman from PPL out of Pennsylvania. So as you're getting more anomaly and failure data from AI, how are you justifying the additional O&M spend that's going to be incurred from that to your leadership?
I'll start. I think you have to get to a point as a company where you're willing to have the data. And just talking with peers, I think some companies are very hesitant because if we create the data, we have to be able to answer for the data. And so I think that's kind of an upfront question to leadership of what data are we comfortable having on hand. And I think we are going to be liable for that data. So if we go out and we take pictures of every single thing that's out there, and we don't catch something, we have a duty to identify where we have problems. And so I think that it's certainly a concern, but thankfully I'm not in the law department, so that falls to somebody else's place. But it's a very real concern, and I think it does. We've seen that at Duke where, hey, we took a picture of something and now we have to fix it, and it's impacting O&M. But I think where Duke ended up with that is, what's the right thing to do for our customers, right? And so where that has come up, yeah, it's been a hard conversation, but we go and we fix the problem. I think it's a very important question, but I think each company is going to navigate it probably differently if I had to guess.
And thank goodness I don't have anything to do with O&M budgeting. So that falls to engineering, but you have to have that conversation when the engineer comes to you and say, I want you to inspect this. Okay, but what are you wanting to get out of that inspection? Do you want to fix everything? Or are we just looking for blank, bad insulators, bad conductors, whatever? Or do you want a comprehensive? So you have to have that. I think I go by absence. So when I see the data come back, I have absent data. So the main chunk of that data is usually between 60 and 70 absents at 150 to 200 poles. So for every 150 to 200 poles, there's 50 to 60. I had one that came back, it had 271 absents out of 400, 500 poles. That's 3/4 of the data is bad. So that's the onus is on the customer, meaning the engineering department, to do something with that.
Our challenge is, depends on which leader you're talking to. You talking to the one in charge of asset management, or are you talking to the one in charge of outage management? So it depends on who you're talking to and who's actually asking for the information. We can offset the O&M costs a lot with capital, especially when we're dealing with engineering. We'll bundle it together with other poles or other just pole replacements in general, or at least we try to as much as possible. But again, if you're trying to go out there to find why a circuit is out of power every month, it justifies its cost right there.
Yeah. It's kind of like insurance as well, right? So what was the cost to do nothing? And have a failure take place. Yeah.
But I think Garrett's right. What's the right thing to do?
I think that's a great way to end it right there. What's the right thing to do? There you go. Thank you very much for our panelists. We sure appreciate it.